Okay, and there. In honor of this movie taking place in the mid-1990s and shot using a 4:3 aspect ratio, I will be shooting this entire review with the same aspect ratio and the staticky effect to create the same illusion. Also, I will be dropping some 90s lingo throughout this review as well. Nah, I'm just playing around. Can you imagine if I really did that? I set things back to normal. Oh my god, where's my hat? Aw man, I really wanted to wear that throughout this review. Anyway, what is up everybody? RandomRandomMan here, bringing you my review for Mid90s. Now the plot of this coming-of-age dramedy basically follows Stevie, played by Sonny Suljic, a 13-year-old who lives in Los Angeles, California during the 1990s, who spends a summer navigating between his troubled home life and a new group of friends he meets at a Motor Avenue skate shop. Going into this movie, I had quite a bit of anticipation for it, mainly for the filmmaker behind the camera. This movie is written and directed by Jonah Hill. Yeah, Jonah Hill, the comedic actor that we all know and love. I was introduced to him in front of the camera with the movie Superbad. I love this film. I was also introduced to Michael Cera and Emma Stone. I love Emma Stone through this movie as well. I've also loved Jonah Hill in other comedic works of his, such as 21 and 22 Jump Street. I've also loved him in his more serious roles, such as his Oscar-nominated work in Moneyball and The Wolf of Wall Street. I also really dug his performance in the recent Netflix miniseries Maniac, where he had a mini Superbad reunion with Emma Stone. Snap out of it, RRM. Stay focused. Yeah, highly recommend watching that miniseries. So, seeing how this is Jonah Hill's first foray into writing and directing a film, this is his directorial debut, I was so interested to see what he was able to offer. This apparently was a passion project of Jonah Hill's in portraying skate culture within Los Angeles during the mid-1990s with authenticity, which goes into the performances of those skaters, starting out with Sonny Suljic as Stevie, aka Sunburn. Now, I've never seen him in anything else prior to this film, but I can say that I thought he was tremendous. The way Suljic portrays Stevie is so relatable to a lot of us in how there is a moment in our lives, specifically in our teens, where we're trying to navigate the world, figure out our place, and he feels that fitting in with the skater group will have his fulfillment. The rest of the supporting performances, I think, are as strong as Suljic's. We have Lucas Hedges as Ian, the older brother to Stevie, and he is the typical older brother that wails on his younger brother all the freaking time. But there are also some moments of vulnerability within him as a character, and Hedges, I think, is an outstanding young actor. There's also the other performers who play the skaters, a part of this group that Stevie joins, and apparently they are non-actors. Like, this is their first time ever being in a movie, and it really does show, but in a good way, in how they really fit the style and setting that this movie is trying to show. There's Gio Galicia as Ruben, the first kid that Stevie meets. I thought he was very good. Nakel Smith as Ray. He deserves a big honorable mention, as he is one of the older kids in this skating group who also has some heft within his character, and if this actor embarks on a film career in the near future, man, he is gonna go places. There's also Alon Prenat as Fuckshit. Yeah, that's the actual name of his character, because every time he sees something wild, he's like, fuck, shit. He was hilarious throughout. There's also Ryder McLaughlin as 4th grade. He's named that because he has the mind of a 4th grader. He shoots a bunch of skateboarding footage throughout this film. There's also Alexa Demi as the, girl who Stevie has a bit of a sexual encounter with, and I thought she was good. There's also Catherine Waterston as Dabney, the mother to Stevie and Ian, and I thought for the screen time she had, she was superb. I love her as an actress. I pretty much enjoyed her in everything I've seen her in prior to this film. And there's even a cameo by Gerard Carmichael as a rent-a-cop who harasses the skater group at one point in the movie. So with the performances here, I think they are strong all around. The writing in this film, and by extension the directing by Jonah Hill, is pretty bare bones in terms of what he is trying to portray on screen. The movie literally opens with the A24 logo being made up by a bunch of skateboards, and I thought that was a nice touch to really get right into the movie as it begins super quickly. And then after this initial montage interlaced with the opening credits, we do get to see the day-to-day life of Stevie and how he gets beat on by his older brother Ian, and also him eyeing this skater group that he wants to join. As I've just said, this movie is bare bones with its concept, and its simplicity is both a big pro and somewhat of a con with how this movie is told in the story department, which I'll get to the con later. But in terms of its big pro, it gives a lot of style to how this movie is presented, in it being a slice of life story, in us observing what Stevie is going through both at home and also how he interacts with the other skaters in the group. The interactions that he has are pretty unfiltered. These kids are really foul-mouthed. They are hoodlums at their very core. They smoke, they drink, they skate all over public property, and it's something that harkened back to me in my early days of watching YouTube videos about a decade ago, looking at some skateboard footage of just people going all around and skating for fun, and this movie captured a lot of that essence. I myself was born in 1997, which isn't exactly the mid-90s, it's more like the mid to late 90s, but either way, I got a sense of authenticity with how the decade is portrayed on screen by Jonah Hill's direction. He really shows off the skating culture well. This is also aided by the movie's production design, which doesn't seem like much at first, but it does help capture the real feeling that we are watching a movie set within the 1990s, from the video game consoles at Stevie's house to even some of the lingo that the characters spout out aside from their bad language. As, yeah, if you're not given the proper context or state of mind to watch this movie, you can say that this film really isn't progressive at all. But the way Hill is focusing the flow of this film, you're really getting the intent that he is trying to make the experience of watching skaters in the 1990s as genuine as possible, and that was effective on my end. Even with the kids in this film acting like little shits throughout a lot of it, there's also some heart-to-heart moments and genuine emotion, such as a moment between Stevie and Ray where Stevie has just gone through some heavy shit, but Ray reaches out to him, and that's probably my favorite moment of the movie because he tells something personal about himself, and he is trying to get through to Stevie and really make him feel like he is a part of the group. Which goes back into the skating that we do see a lot of in this movie, and I personally cannot skate at all. I cannot skate for shit. I will end up busting myself if I try to balance on that piece of wood with wheels on it. Like, ugh. I don't know how people are able to balance on it so easily and ride through the streets with little hassle, but that's just something that reinforces how immersed I was with the film. Speaking of overall immersion, what aids the production design and overall visual look of this movie is how it sounds as well, which goes into the music of this film. Now, the original score here was composed by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which, yeah, they're some of my favorite composers for movies as of late. They have composed scores for movies such as The Social Network, for which they won the Oscar for Best Original Score, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and Gone Girl. Coincidentally, all three of those fantastic movies were directed by David Fincher, and what Reznor and Ross do here with the score in Mid90s is create something ambient and really fitting to the era that this movie is set in. The movie also uses some hip-hop songs throughout to also create a further sense of atmosphere of the mid-1990s. Even a way older song like Dedicated to the One I Love by the Mamas and the Papas is thrown in. Like I said at the beginning of this review, this movie was shot using a 4:3 aspect ratio, not only to back up how this film is set within the mid-1990s with some grain being seen on screen, but it's also used for practical purposes. For example, there are some close-ups that we see on characters' faces to get us more into the emotions of what they're feeling inside, and these intimate moments really help get us more absorbed within them. Also, the character 4th Grade shoots some skateboarding footage throughout, and it's later compiled in a montage sequence at the end of the movie, which blends seamlessly with the rest of the main cinematography. Speaking of the movie ending that way, by the time this movie does reach its conclusion of sorts, it has ran for less than an hour and a half. This movie is short, really short, at about 84 minutes to be more specific, so without the end credits, it runs at about 80 minutes or so. I thought it was mostly well-paced. I never felt it drag or rush, really, as I was invested in seeing, really, a window of somebody trying to fit in with this skater group. But yeah, it also feels like this movie had some padding within it as well, which gets into some of the issues I did have with it. Now, even though this movie runs really short at about 84 minutes, there are some random scenes here and there that did feel like they were trying to extend the runtime. Also, with me mentioning earlier of how this movie is really simple, that goes into that point as well, in that really there isn't that much story at its core, and it's like we're just watching a series of events with Stevie navigating his summer between his troubled home life and hanging out with his skater friends. This came off to me wanting more meat within the story at hand, and it also showed at points that this is a first-time director making a movie. But when I look at this movie overall, this film is a pretty strong directorial debut. Hill has a bright future ahead of him as a filmmaker behind the camera, and it's pretty clear that he had a lot of heart poured into this movie, as some of the more emotional moments do show. I know that there are going to be people who take issue with this film on a moral and ethical level for it not entirely being akin to the PC world that we live in today. It does take place for the umpteenth time in the mid-1990s, so these kids are really doing some immoral things. But again, this is a window into a world that I was not alive to see, so to get more insight from a first-time filmmaker behind the camera like Jonah Hill, it was a nice little treat to see for sure. This film is getting its nationwide expansion this weekend, so if you are looking to see what Jonah Hill has to offer as a first-time writer/director, this is a film to see. I definitely recommend Mid90s. My final verdict for Mid90s is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of Mid90s, social media links in the description, subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.